Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I am Aew and thank you for joining me today for your AEW Fight for Fallen 2020 review. The review is going up a little earlier than usual, simply because, as you can see, I'm a little dressed up because I have an interview in a little while. Uh, Nonetheless, here to give you a review and go over all that happened on Fight for Fallen last night. Was a pretty good show. Had, of course, the TNT title match between Cody and Sun Kiss. We had the first ever meeting between the first ever official 2-on-2 match between FTR and the Lucha Brothers. We also had Jon Moxley versus Brian Cage for the Aew World title. Much to go over, so we'll go over that today on the podcast. Of course, if you're new, you can like and subscribe on the video. It would help. So thank you. And so let's get into the review, shall we? So the show started off with the TNT title match, the first of two title matches for the evening. Cody versus Sun Kiss. Now, of course, everyone has their opinions on Sun Kiss, and I do as well. But I was hoping that if anyone could bring a more serious side of Sun Kiss, it'd be Cody. This was an okay match. I wasn't all thrilled for it, but the more interesting story, though, in the match was you could see kind of some tendencies of Cody basically possibly signaling a heel turn, like in the future, maybe send something else up down the line. So the match, it was a fast start by Cody because over at Road to the Fight for Fallen on AEW's channel, when they were on Road to Fight for Fallen, they were talking about a sit-down interview with Cody and Arn Anderson. They were talking about how Cody. Wait, excuse me one sec. I'm going to plug something in. Oops, excuse me. But yeah, so they were talking about in the interview how basically the unknownness of Sun Kiss and the unpredictability could make the match dangerous. So that's what they talked about. And so going back to the match, it was a disaster kick by Cody for a 2 count. Later in the match, how back in the day when Hardcore Ollie signature would kick his opponent while they were kind of wheelbarrowed on the ropes. That was a similar situation, but Cody threw Sun Kiss on the ring apron or on the ramp, and then hit also courtesy of Hardcore Ollie or homage to Hardcore Ollie, Alabama Slam to Sun Kiss on the ramp. Looked kind of brutal. And then a vertebreaker, which you don't see that much often in WWE or pro wrestling these days. A vertebreaker for a 2 count. And then they were exchanging, and then Cody hit a devastating crossroads for the win. Now, like I said, what was interesting about the match was they cut to Tully Blanchard sitting in the stands or sitting in the seats in Daly's place. And there were also some sequences, like when Cody took off his weight belt. It looked like he was about to use it. I mean, there were some sequences where Cody, could be signaling a heel turn in the future. I think we all kind of expect that. But as we also saw in the match with FTR and the Lucha Brothers, we saw maybe there could be a faction brewing between Cody and FTR and Shawn Spears down the line. We could see that. But it was interesting. And Cody next week will defend his team's title again. Against who? I'm not sure, but they mentioned possibly Warhorse, which I haven't heard much about, but we'll see. Because, of course, Cody said that it doesn't have to be just AEW employees. It can be non-AEW employees getting a title shot. So we go from that to probably the most hyped match of the evening, which was the Lucha Brothers versus FTR. So the Luchas, they came out obviously in the truck of FTR that was stolen from FTR by the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and Blade. So Butcher and Blade were actually driving the Lucha Brothers to the match, and they were cheering them on back from that area the entire match. But this was just a sight. Be able to see FTR and the Lucha Brothers just shows you how good that this tag team division is. So this is basically kind of an old school versus new school approach and tag team match, where it's like the Lucha Brothers, they're like high flying, the Lucha Libre style, and of course the FTR, they're the technical savvy style. Old school, they said that how one of the reasons why they came to AEW was the Lucha Brothers, how they said they don't really follow the rules. And FTR was trying to implement their style. So it was a alley-oop back suplex combination on Phoenix by Dax Harwood for 2 count. Getting in the Mo match, there was a double team elevated splash by Phoenix with a springboard leg drop by Pentagon for 2 count. And Cash Wheeler, who caught Phoenix, who was going for a Hurricanrana, he caught Phoenix, and then Dax tagged him and hit an elevated bulldog off the top rope for 2 count. Nice spot. And then big tornado DT was a tope to suicida into a tornado DT by Cash Wheeler on the outside. And then at the end of the match, Dax and Phoenix were exchanging, and Dax ripped the mask off of Phoenix, and Phoenix was trying to hide his face, and Dax rolled him up for the win. I like this match. obviously, if there were an actual fan base in more fan base in attendance, this match would turn the house out. Um, I mean, you'd love to see a rematch between these two for the tag team titles, and I think maybe they're signaling, especially saw in the show for an FTR versus Heyman and Omega match soon. Maybe at All Out. Z. I actually thought the Lucha Bros were going to win this match, but oh well. So after that, we got Inner Circle segment. So Chris Jericho, Santana Ortiz, and Hager all came out. Obviously, no Sammy Guevara, who is still suspended. Kind of missed him with the Inner Circle. But Cody said he'll be back, but we'll just have to wait to see when he does come back. Hopefully, when he comes back, maybe fans will be there, and then he might get a pop when he returns. We'll see. But so the Inner Circle came out, and Jericho was reflecting on his match last week at Fyter Fest with Orange Cassidy, and saying how it was one of the best matches of his career. That Orange Cassidy was good, just not good enough to beat him. So he and Hager had gallons of orange juice, and so they drank to their match, and Cassidy, and then poured down in the middle of the ring, toast to the end of Cassidy's career. So then all of a sudden, Orange Cassidy came out in the sands on the other side of Dave's place of the arena, and Cassidy walked down with his hands in his pockets. Jericho kept talking about how there's going to be no rematch between. Also mentioned that Tony Schiavone was on the show. He's okay, but he's mentioned for a certain reason. So while Jericho, he was talking to Cassidy, saying she should get out of his arena, and then all of a sudden Cassidy, with his nonchalant thumbs up, he put his thumb up and then gave them the thumbs down, and then all of a sudden they cut to a wide shot, and I thought originally, okay, maybe the best friends come out and attack their circle, but all of a sudden you see a bunch of orange juice drop from the top all over on the inner circle, and it was hilarious. Jericho was drenched, most of all. Ortiz, he was like swimming, is like struggling, slipping in the orange juice. It was hilarious. Hager and Santana were drenched as well. But Jericho kept talking, Cassie, Cassie. Obviously, he's upset. Cassie saying, this is $7,000 jacket. And then Hager and Santana were holding back Jericho, and Cassidy left. And then Jericho said, "Throw me a towel, throw me a towel." So they threw a beach towel, an Orange Cassidy beach towel, and then Jericho was trying to dry off, and then Santana and Hager were pointing at it, and then all of a sudden Jericho noticed that Cassie's face was on the towel, so that was hilarious. Excuse me. So and after that, because Tony Schiavone was non-commentary tonight, and Taz, he was actually on commentary for half the night, but since his guy Brian Cage was going to be in the main event, then after the segment, Jericho joined Jim Ross and Excalibur on the commentary team for the rest of the night, and it was just hilarious. So many times you heard, "I'm covered in orange juice" by Chris Jericho. It was just hilarious. "I'm covered in orange juice." You heard that so many times. It was just hilarious. So after that, so then we got Jurassic Express versus the Elite. So all three members of Jurassic Express versus Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. So in the male match, Kenny went for his Rise of the Terminator. Usually people would be upset because it's one of those dive spots where usually the people that can catch the dive are just looking and waiting. But the Young Bucks, since they were Kenny Omega's partners, they actually held Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus in position on the outside while Kenny Omega did his dive over the top rope onto Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. So that was more believable. That's what you like, the little things that work. So we got that, and then Tornado DT by Jungle Boy. And then there was a chokeslam shooting star or ascending shooting star combination by Luchasaurus for a 2 count. There was a tombstone cutter combination by Jurassic Express on Kenny for a 2 count. And then there was a assisted Tiger Driver 98 by all three members of the Elite on Luchasaurus for a 2 count. There was a 450 by Marco Stunt on for a 2 count. Then there was a assisted Destroyer on Matt Jackson by Marco Stunt for a 2 count. And then Kenny Omega was exchanging with Marco Stunt. And then he is the one-winged angel on Marco Stunt for a 3 count. And it was interesting because at the end of the match, they showed a shot of Hangman Adam Page looked to be in a bar somewhere, or probably at his house, I'm not sure. Drinking, watching AEW or Fight for Fun, and then all of a sudden you see FTR arrive, sit next to him, and they were having a drink, or Hangman offered him some Jack Daniels, and they were drinking. So I'm not sure if that's the reason for what happened next, but they made it sound like it. But maybe it's not Hangman that's turning heel. Maybe it's Kenny Omega, because after the match, Kenny Omega was wailing on Marco's son with some shots. Uh, and then that got Jericho fired up on commentary. And so Kenny Omega, maybe a heel turn. Well, because and the other thing was, so at the end of the Lucha Brothers FTR match, what I forgot to cover was, so after match, Butcher and Blade, like I said, who were in front of the truck, um, the Young Bucks surprise right behind them and deliver a super kick party to the Butcher and Blade, and then took the keys, and then they went out to, I assume, give the keys to FTR, and then Kenny Omega, because he uh, poured out the beer that was offered to him by FTR last week. He put he came out with a peace offering, came out with a cooler with cans of beers. He offered to toast with FTR, and then FTR both poured the beer all over Kenny Omega, which obviously fired him up. But the Young Bucks were there to separate them, make sure nothing escalated. So they all said that was a reason. Who knows? But I mean, Kenny Omega, uh, everybody was assuming would be a world champion in AEW by now. He has been. He's been tied in this tag team with Hangman Adam Page um, to build the tag team division, and they've done their part. Um, I think that now a heel turn for Omega, because originally everybody was thinking Hangman was going to turn heel. I included, but looking back at it, Kenny could definitely use a heel turn, use a little character change. I wouldn't mind that, because when you think that Hangman's really so over with his gimmick, his drinking gimmick, you'd think that he can't turn heel. It wouldn't really be possible. So Kenny turning heel could work. So we cut from that to a short interview of Hikaru Shida with Alex Marvez backstage. Marvez talked about how 4 of the top contenders in for the AEW women's title are unable to compete due to restrictions and stuff. So, I mean, Britt Baker injured, Chris Statlander injured. They actually showed her. They actually showed Britt Baker next to the commentary team with a little mask, facial mask, because of her broken nose. But so, yeah, Britt Baker's injured till all out. Chris Statlander, she tore her ACL. Yuka Sakazaki, obviously, restrictions. Riho, restrictions. I think Penelope Ford, I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe she's still able to compete. I didn't see her, but maybe she's able to compete. And Nyla Rose. Those two are really the only two that can compete. So she asked if she's ready for Nyla Rose, and she said she's ready, and she's waiting for Nyla to show her passion. So yeah, that was cool. Sheeta, of course, she's been the best thing about the women's division uh, since AEW started. And yeah, not much to say. Um, we'll see what happens, how all out for the women's division. They just need more women, more competitors, more credible contenders, because the AEW women's division before this pandemic was kind of iffy. And now that this pandemic is happened, and the injuries, this AEW women's division is more limited than it already was. So yeah. So we go from that to a promo by Jon Moxley. It looked like he was in front of a fence somewhere off the highway, and he was talking about Brian Cage, talking about how their things have transpired the last few weeks. Uh, but he's back now, and how Taz said he wouldn't be able to do paradigm shift uh, or on Cage because of the size of his biceps. So Moxley talked about his bicep injury, which hindered the signing of Brian Cage. So he talked about how he would tear that in half again and then be able to hit the paradigm shift. Uh, but that came into play in the match later in the show. But I mean, Moxley, I'm glad to see him back on TV. Obviously, of course, his wife Renee Young tested positive uh, for the COVID. I assume she's better uh, now, but Moxley, he tested negative, but they were taking all the precautions. Uh, Still glad to see him back on TV. Of course, this is the thing with AEW that we love. They're not shown every week. Certain people are not shown every week, which make you miss them, which you like. But this was fun. Little promo. After that, so we got the Nightmare Sisters. Yeah, the Nightmare Sisters. Brandy, uh, Cody's wife, Brandy Rhodes, and Aew. This was, uh, they were with Dustin against Kenzie Page and MJ Jenkins. This was a short match. Aew hit a final cut for the win. So they said, well, they have been on Dark the last few weeks, and that's another thing you like about the show. They've been paying more attention to Dark, showing you the results each week on Dynamite. Uh, but I mean, said they were 4-0 as a tag team. I mean, Brandy, look, of course, people have had mixed feelings about her because of her wrestling skill and, well, in WWE, people didn't really like her as an announcer because originally she was a wrestler, then she turned into an announcer. But, and then she did for a few weeks in AEW at the start of the pandemic, and then Dasha took over, and then Justin Roberts is now back. So she's kind of gotten better, but in the ring, she's been okay. But I mean, I don't really see where this goes. Probably this goes to a Brandy versus Ali match at All Out. I'm not sure about that really. I mean, but I mean, yes, they both have a good look, but still, they're not really that great in the ring. So it's like, what's the greatest story? Plus, I know that QT Marshall tested positive for the uh, COVID. So, I mean, we'll also see how when he comes back because, well, the AEW tag team division is really stacked, but so the natural nightmares being gone doesn't really hinder it, but still, you'd like to see more tag teams and hope that QT Marshall comes back healthy. Same with Anna Jay because I think she got tested positive for it as well. But whatever, hope they're both okay. So we go from that to the announcement by Nyla Rose. And last week she talked about getting a manager, and we got it. Vickie Guerrero. Yes, Vickie Guerrero. Miss, excuse me. Uh, I mean, some people probably saw it coming, some people didn't. I mean, I I have mixed feelings definitely about it because I mean, yes, my ears are still probably ringing from the late 2000 or late last decade when Becky would say so much "excuse me" uh, when she was portrayed as Edge's wife in La Familia and the general manager of SmackDown. Uh, Vickie, of course, we miss her. It's good to see her back, but at the same time, the last thing I want to hear when I see a Nyla Rose match, because Nyla Rose, of course, she's a force. Um, of course, she's pretty good on the mic, but she's not really all there. So, but I mean, the last thing I want to hear is, uh, excuse me, while I'm trying to watch a Nyla Rose match. That's all. Hopefully, this uh, takes a turn and is good for both of them. I mean, we'll see, but I still have mixed feelings about it. So then, uh, some matches were announced for next week. So Cody will defend his TNT title again next week. MJF will be back in action. Uh, got the Young Bucks versus the Butcher and Blade in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Should be interesting. Hager and Jericho versus the Jurassic Express. Uh, got Evilise versus Diamante as well. Like I said, all been confirmed for next week. And then, last but not least, we go to the main event: Jon Moxley versus Brian Cage. Of course, we were supposed to get it last week, but uh, for Firefest, but we got it tonight. And this match didn't really disappoint. Moxley, he came out. Um, Also, the finish of the match was a little unexpected, but I liked it. Um, so Moxley came out from down an escalator, uh, came into the arena, and it was a fast start for both of them. And then Moxley, he was targeting the arm of Brian Cage because, of course, he said in the promo that he was going to attack the arm of Cage and basically tear it in half. Later in the match, we get into it. There was a tope to seal by Moxley. Then they were fighting on the outside. And then they talked about referee's discretion. Talked about how they're doing playoff rules for a title match, Aew World title match, which you'll like clarification of, because why is the referee not in the ring counting out these men? Gets clarification. So they get back by the ring, and Moxley set up a piece of barricade, wedging the ring apron and the floor. And Cage hit a German suplex and a slam on Moxley on that piece of barricade. Rolled into the ring for a 2 count. Then we get back from break, and Cage hit a suplex on Moxley on a chair that was set up in the corner on the outside of the ring. Then Moxley hit a pair of cradles for a pair of 2 counts. Moxley hit paradigm shift out of the way, the double arm DT for a 2 count. He hit a superplex for a 2 count. And then they were exchanging because Moxley was going for the Juju Gatami cross arm rigger. He rolled it. Cage, he rolled that looked like an omoplata. Then Moxley went for the other arm, and then rolled over. And then while Cage was in the armbar, Moxley flipped off. Taz while he was giving them the arm breaker, and then Taz, he threw in the towel. No Darby Allin, not yet, but it showed it was nice ending to the match. You liked it because they were talking about, of course, Cage's arm, and shows that Moxley can win a match a bunch of different ways. And so in aftermatch, well, first of all, Jim Ross clarified why was it a good decision for Taz throwing the towel. Well, he talked about how Cage was on the show for 5 months with the bicep injury, and then so then he talked about how it would be good for 10 months, a whole year, being in rehab for a torn bicep. So clarified that, and then after match, Cage was attacking Moxley. All of a sudden, the lights go out, and lights come back on, and Darby Allin comes out, attacks Brian Cage with his skateboard, and thwarts off Brian Cage. Cage was being held back by officials. Moxley and Darby Allin were talking in the ring. Basically, not really a stare down, but I'd like to see another match between them down the line because the first was really good. We'll see because you can absolutely see Darby Allin be an AEW World Champion in the future. But that was a nice way to end the show. I mean, I liked it. Besides Cody and Sunkiss match and the Nightmare Sisters match, it was pretty solid. Fight for Fallen mini pay per view. Uh, Obviously, now they're going to be building towards All Out first week of September. Uh, but this was fun. Could finally get the Moxley for cage match. We finally got, or and we got the TNT title match for, as well as Young Bucks for Butcher and Blade, Falls Count Anywhere, and much more next week. Uh, Thank you guys for joining this. I enjoyed it as well. Once again, a little early, but oh well. Of course, I'll be back tomorrow, uh, same time, for usual for my NXT review. Uh, but nonetheless, hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you're new, like and subscribe. I am Aew Love, and I'll be back tomorrow. And I'll be safe.